All right, let's see. Should be all good to go here. I already see we have quite a lot of people who are in here already. Let me just make sure. And yes, sirree, we're all good to go. How you guys doing? We're talking about Dover in this one, coming off of a really close week. Obviously, we had a Kraft, nearly win the $4 contest again last week. You know, um, Jose had another great weekend as well, and then uh, before Cody Ware lost a wheel, we pretty much had the nuts across the board. Um, Coming into Dover here, let me move one more thing around really fast. AD brings up a very good point. Is this the passing of the torch, ladies and gentlemen? Is this the new coming of Wendell Scott? Hey, Hall of Fame. Hey, I'm just saying, NASCAR has set a precedent that all you have to do is win one singular race, and you'll be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So, are we seeing a passing the torch of new Hall of Fame members today? Who knows? I don't think so. I think Raja still holds that, but we're just gonna have to see. LeVar Scott in the Alpha Beta Prime cars. Let's see if he doesn't wreck the vehicle this week. As we look at the practice data and stuff, I do want to mention a couple things for Dover. One, I'm actually not going to be able to watch this race. I got to be somewhere after this. Two, it is my favorite track outside of the plate races. I think it's the most fun race to watch. Three, with the new updates they made to SaberSim, last week when we were on Sonoma, I mentioned that I hadn't been using it at all. This past week, obviously, MLB was off. There's literally nothing going on outside of esports, right? But I do like the improvements that they've made in their portfolio manager and stuff whenever you upload your contests and stuff. And in fact, I am going to do my own experiments for a bit with playing the mini max just to see how it um, is going to allocate NASCAR drivers specifically, because normally I don't waste my time playing, like a tank of gas in the 50 cent one. But I am very curious to see if they've made changes that I would start wanting to use more. Mainly because I've been talking to some people privately on what SaberSim has added on their with their new updates, and it seems to be substantially better. But I will update people probably within 2 to 3 weeks of what I'm seeing, kind of on my own stuff. First off, or at least quickly, I did the mini max for MLB yesterday. Obviously, I and whether it was just happenstance or whatever, I finished third in the 47,000 lineup contest. I think that is more with the improvements that they made. But then again, maybe I'm just using a $300 sim product to just fucking piss around with like quarter slots, right? So it could just be the contest. But I will update people on kind of my findings for NASCAR in that regard, because I have had quite a lot of questions regarding that. Anyway, when we're looking at Dover now, obviously, typically we run this in April. We're running it in the end of July this year. Um, but typically the intermediates carry over. You see a strong correlation between Charlotte and Dover, and stuff like that. Like, there really shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary in terms of people competing in this Dover race. Okay, now the thing to note, I mean, obviously, if you've been here long enough, you know that I don't really give a shit about the practice groups enough to really warrant anything. I think that data is pretty much useless. You can look at it on an individual driver level, but comparing guys in Group 1 and Group 2 and then arguing what their fall off is and stuff like that, whatever, right? I don't really think this practice data is really worth anything in my mind. I mean, really, outside of Kyle Sieg, like clearly having, being extremely slow. I honestly, I don't think we can learn anything from this practice data, right? So I'm not going to be talking about this much. I'm looking at more of where people have been in terms of green flag speed at intermediate tracks. I do want to mention or focus on, before we really start talking about the constructions and stuff that we can do here. And yeah, Wiska finally back to normal. Like, thank God. Um, personally, now Allgaier will be going to the rear because they are obviously, fixing the car because he put it in the wall. But just for me, I don't like when we have damage on the right rear of a race car, especially on a race car that I would argue wasn't up to the speed that we wanted to see from Allgaier, right? Whether it be practice, which yet again, I'm not really focused on a ton, but if I see anything out of the ordinary, like obviously second group or whatever. So when you compare guys in the second group and you look at where Allgaier's lap times are, I'm not really a fan of this fall off that we're seeing compared to other drivers in this group. I would expect him to be one of the more faster and consistent guys. Secondly, I wasn't very impressed with the first Q lap, and then obviously he put it in the wall on the right side. Personally, for me, they believe they don't need a backup car. I would have just fucking brought the backup car out. Like obviously, they believe the car is good enough to go, right? But just from my experience, typically whenever you hit that right rear, especially like the fucking right rear axle on a track where you have an extremely high like load on the right rear of the car where like you need the car to turn pretty easily here at Dover. Personally, for me, I'm not gonna be playing any Justin Allgaier. Now, with that said, he is currently the favorite. He's still the favorite on Bet Rivers. I'm pretty sure he's still the favorite in other sports books, which we can go ahead and take a quick gander really fast here as I kind of talk through stuff. Where are we at? Let's see. Uh, he's plus 330 on DraftKings. I mean, he's still a top three favorite, but just me personally, I'm I didn't like what I saw in practice. I didn't like what I saw in Q in terms of what his expected speed should have been, and I don't like that he put it in the wall. And then he's coming from the rear. Um, Granted, this race is 200 laps. One thing I like about Dover is it goes by very, very quickly. Um, it's extremely now. I'm not saying it can't happen. Also, I really didn't like the discourse of this is Charlotte and stuff. But one thing that was really pissing me off in the practice and stuff was like when you look at last year's race at Dover, right? And oops, let me make sure this some bitch loads. Okay, so obviously, like we go into overtime, and we had just guys racing so stupid. He was in. I don't remember what. I don't think he's gonna show up. Give me a second here. I'm gonna find. Let's hold on. He was in the 88 last year. Okay, all these idiots, like the whole like dude Dylan and Parker were like on their knees talking about Carson, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, he finished second. Okay, great, but like we also just went through like World War III at the end of this race last year. Okay, Carson was in six, and I mean that's where he was at. Okay, but like he wasn't blowing the field off. You know why he got through the field? He qualified poorly, but he got through the field because we had these yellows and stuff, right? That's just over. But he didn't get there in terms of speed. Yes, it's impressive. Once we get to the restart here, he, inherited the lead, took over the lead, and then survived two restarts to finish, second and stuff. But like, I don't know why everybody's like just yapping about Carson like he fucking drove up through the field. Okay. Why is that relevant? Okay. This is the trajectory that I would envision Justin Allgaier having today. Okay. I don't think he's going to be in the top 10 by the end of the first stage. Maybe. I mean, maybe he plows through, gets through a lot of people, but I would envision him to be in sixth or around like lap 110. Okay. So, you know, why is that important? Okay. Because I get a lot of questions related to what are you doing about the favorite to this race? Max Verstappen's the favorite here, blah, 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 blah. Like, yes, the favorite to win doesn't necessarily correlate with what they're going to do during the race. We're playing DFS, okay? We're not just straight betting, where people are going to finish or whatever. So, yes, I don't really envision Allgaier's odds to be changing much because he hit the wall and he's going to the rear. But I think, and this is where, yet again, I just talked about where I'm going. I think he's pretty much dead on a DFS point of view due to his pricing, due to the people who are going to be competing for the lead up top, and the fact that he's going to need to retake the lead and lead a significant portion of this race. And this is going to be a really really fast race. I'm personally not playing Justin Allgaier. So, like, if you disagree with that, I don't know if it's going to be very helpful or whatever. I don't think this is going to be very helpful if you have a different opinion on Justin Allgaier. Because of that, okay, who am I looking at to be potential lap leaders in the expensive category and stuff, or the 10K guys and stuff? Obviously, Eric Almirola and Connor Zilic, obviously your two favorite guys. But the fact that you remove, or that I'm removing, that I'm approaching this race as if Allgaier does not compete to be optimal from a DFS perspective at 12,000. Okay, what does that do to this grid? What does this do to the DFS players and stuff, or your players that you can use here? That makes it to where you can play literally anybody. And why did DraftKings sign? It's because I didn't open DraftKings Sportsbook in an incognito tab. I gotta log back in. Give me a moment here, just so I don't accidentally bring this screen up. Whoops. Where's my phone at? Oh my lord! I can't believe I fumbled that and opened the sports book in Texas, man. And then they just signed me out of everything. Like, DraftKings, I'm not going to put a bet in from Texas anyway. When we're looking at the field, if you remove Allgaier, okay, this field is priced in the sense of you're expected to play the Concrete King, Justin Allgaier, 12,000. Okay, if you don't do that, you can play whoever the heck you want. Two, when we look at where the people are scoring in these races, if you want to go through this, obviously you can join us in the link in the description below and get any of our packages to look at this stuff in more detail. I'm going to be going through this pretty fast. When we're looking at your which one is it? When we're looking at our scoring ranges here, we look from 5th to like 8th, right? And we're looking at a pretty substantially, high range. Typically, we're like low 40s. I mean, even 5th right here is 50 as a median, 47 as a median for 6th, 46 is a median for 7th and stuff, because there's such a huge portion of multiple guys getting fast laps and laps led in these races. Excuse me. We need guys who are going to be competing to hit like 43 points as a floor. If you cannot hit that, I don't want to play you. Okay, since I'm not playing Justin Allgaier, where is that going? Okay, that is hitting a lot of people. Also, secondly, we have a lot of people in the top 10 who shouldn't finish there. Okay, William Sawallace, Harrison Burton, Jeb Burton. Okay, all these drivers would be expected to lose 2 to 4 positions. If you throw Jones in there as well, compared, or in relation to where Ross Chastain, Justin Allgaier are starting, we would expect Nicholas Sanchez, Brandon Jones, William Sawallace, Harrison Burton, and Jeb Burton to all lose positions, okay? So that's 5 opportunities or 5 positions in the top 10 that will be gained by other people. Who are the people who would be competing for a top 10 in this race who aren't in the top 10? That's Creed, that's Love, that's Mayer, that's Carson Kvapil, that's Austin Hill, that's Sammy Smith, that's Ryan Sieg, okay? So what I want to do in this race is get as many of these drivers in my lineups as possible, okay? How do I do that? Well, we have Taylor Gray at $8,200, okay? Yet again, I'm not really concerned about the practice data, okay? Because a lot of people struggle in practice, a lot of people are slower, it's different weather, whatever. Where is Taylor Gray expected to be at, okay? When we just eyeball it, where has he finished in these races? He's been up there competing for intermediate tracks. When we look at where he's been this year, and typically what his average speed rank is on Astukas' stuff, we're seeing that Taylor Gray is right around a 10th place. He's averaging 10.6 here. But in terms of the people who that he's around, and the fact that he has clean air, and typically he's starting, he's finding a much more difficult field. Okay, I really like Taylor Gray to at least lead 30 to 35, 40 laps. Okay, I like Connor Zilic, and Connor's at a discounted rate at 10,000. I love Eric Almirola. Okay, when we look at who is competing at regular intermediate tracks, okay, as stated, it's usually Justin Allgaier, Eric Almirola, whoever the best Joe Gibbs car is, and that's typically outside of Eric Almirola, that has been Taylor Gray. He's come very close to winning races this year. Okay, so the fact that we have a lot of people who are, what I would argue, underpriced, starting in the top 10 that you would want to target today, Taylor Gray, Eric Almirola, Connor Zilic. Hell, even if you want to play Nicholas Sanchez at 75, the same argument can be made there. Okay. But we don't really need, like, we're not searching for value a lot. Okay. And if we are, it's because we're jamming in a bunch of 8 and 9 and 10K drivers here, so our pool for our value plays are pretty much even across the board. Who are the value plays that we're potentially getting to today? Okay, they're all pretty much identical plays. That's Josh Balicki, that's Ryan Ellis, that's Garrett Smithley, that's Nick Light. Okay, there's a lot of situations where we don't even need a 5K guy today. Okay, there's also situations to where, if we're playing as many of the 9 and 8K guys as possible, and we need a floor of 42, 43 points from people, okay, we can very easily, like, eyeball who's not going to compete for that, who realistically isn't going to be able to score that at one of the more difficult and fast tracks um, in this field, okay? And so that leaves us with a player pool of, you know, Christian Eckes, yet again, just talking out loud, of a floor of 42 points. The projection really doesn't matter here. We're just talking about who's in play. Christian Eckes, Ryan Truex in the backfield. Now, also, Sam Hunt has, we've seen Corey Hyman in this car. We've seen other people in these cars and stuff too. But this is a gigantic step down for Ryan Truex. And also Truex has, kind of fluky, kind of hack. He kind of fell into these wins at Dover, right? Like he's not the end all be all. But when we look at what Truex has done earlier this year. Now, yet again, this was at Daytona, but just as a scoring example, he started 33rd and finished 17th. That's 42 points at $8,000. Where is he today? Starting 32nd at $8,000. Hey, if this idiot can carry a Sam Hunt car to 17th to 16th, he's scoring the floor that we're arguing to get to. Same thing with Eckes, right? So, as we continue on, the pool is Christian Eckes, Ryan Truex, whatever these idiot value plays you want to play. I highlighted Casgarala. I didn't mention him, a few minutes ago when I mentioned Balicki, Ellis. Casgarala is in there as well. Dead crew member Juju, dead team Juju, whatever the case may be. I can't imagine that our motorsport is going to roll over and die. And like Kaz actually knows what he's doing. Okay, so we continue on. We don't even need to worry about, the variables of what's Anthony Alfredo going to do, what's Jeremy Clements going to do, what's Daniel Dye, what's Josh Williams going to do. We can play those guys, but normally, we're having lineups be determined on what those guys can do in these situations. We're not in that situation today. Like we don't really need to worry about what Josh Williams, what Parker Retzlaff, what Daniel Dye, really what anybody from 22nd to 30th is doing. Okay. Just due to the pricing, a Hendrick car at $7,100. So we have James or Jake Finch in there. And then, it's all these guys here, right? With Eric Almirola, we'll include Chastain in that, Taylor Gray and Connor Zilic, right? So like if you're highlighting green here, this is the pool, right? Now, because this is the pool and we have so many guys projected so similar and so many people priced so similar, I mean, you pretty much have the entirety of the 9K range starting, from, 11th to, 15th. You pretty much have the 8K range outside of Carson Quaffle and Sammy Smith, 14th, 17th, 31st, and 32nd, So these four drivers are competing directly against each other in the 8K range. These 9K guys are competing directly against each other in the 9K range here. And then obviously you have, Taylor Gray as a potential lap leader, Connor Zilic, Chastain, Eric Almirola as whatever 10K guy works out. Okay, but because we don't have, or I'm removing Justin Allgaier from the equation, okay, everybody in their own individual price ranges are projected to be very similar to each other. Okay. So what does that mean? I think one, that means that it should be fairly easy as long as you don't just like, oh, I'm going to pay 80% Christian Eckes and 75% Ryan Truex. As long as you don't do that, it should be fairly simple to have unique lineups across the board because there's really nothing separating Austin Hill, who seems to always be starting 15th and finishes 5th in every race. You know, there's really nothing separating his projection from Sammy Smith starting 17th to if he can finish, 8th or whatever, right? So this is a slate that it should just be a lot of mixing and matching here, which yet again, kind of segues back to how I started. Um, I've heard decently well things about the new SaberSim update, specifically from the motorsports perspective of it. And I think this seems to be a fairly decent slate to, put that really to the test because, uh, you know, I'm not one to use the clear favorite of Allgaier that most people expected to do anything with. We are really not at a salary constraint whatsoever. I've already put in a majority of my lineups in. I have not ran to salary constraints in really any form or fashion. There's some lineups that I've spent all the money. There's some where I'm leaving 4, 6, 800. It's like there's not. Uh, if you're running the salary issues, I don't exactly know how you're building. Okay. If you're running with the outside of, and even potentially with, you know, Balicki Gralla, I mean, Balicki, Kaz Gralla, Garrett Smithley, and Nick Lights. Okay. People might forget this. I mean, pay attention to where people are finishing. Nick Lights has finished like 27th in all of the like last 3 intermediate races. Garrett Smithley, same thing. Like these guys finished, 28, 27, 26 by just surviving and getting through the field. Okay. You have Balicki, who is, starting slightly higher than them, who is a better driver than them in a car who can finish slightly better than 26th, 25th. He should be competing for like 23rd today. So all these drivers are going to be, potentially scoring, anywhere from 24 to 28 points. Okay. That's your one value play to fit in everybody else who can potentially get you 42 plus. Okay. Like that's the slate. Uh, as stated, I don't think there's any specific favorites and stuff. I like Connor Zilich today. I like Taylor Gray to lead. Those are pretty much my only real takes. I'm just gonna kind of be rocking and rolling with whatever my stuff gives me. But I do specifically like the slate to get unique, pretty easy, without getting like wildly dumb. I don't think we have to make like where this slate shouldn't be decided on. Oh man, Anthony Alfredo needs to finish 17th for me to win, $20,000. It should just be if Anthony Alfredo just does what he normally does, he's usually not in the equation. Okay, uh, I think you should be able to very easily have just by default, probably 4 to 5 top 10 finishers in each lineup. Um, or people who can score 42 points and stuff like that. It's also interesting with Eckes and Ryan Truex starting right beside each other at pretty cheap situations. Now Eckes has had a ton of bad luck. That's why he's priced so low. He's been involved in a ton of wrecks that has not been his fault at all because he's had top 15 speed in nearly every intermediate track this year. He's just been involved in a ton of wrecks, right? Um, you probably want to play Eckes here. He should be priced like 8,700. So like those are my real takes. We can look at stuff or see what you guys are saying here, but I mean, this is, I think that's the slate pretty much. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Thank you for the super chat, Peb back. Let me see. Sorry, I just realized. Whoops. These guys in green, because I realized I wasn't sharing the screen. These guys in green, like that. That's the pool of the drivers that I've been speaking about here. Let's see. That's mainly it. I'm following what my projections are saying across the board. Which yet again, I think this is the slate. I don't think you have to get crazy. Like I said, I'm not playing Justin Allgaier. I'm very curious. Let's see if SaberSim actually has some projections up. I'm gonna refresh too. This is I like okay. This is the point. Like timeout. Why are they not up? They should be up if I refresh. And I know I've been I've been talking for half an hour now, but none of this shit was updated when I showed up earlier. Oh my god, we finally have ownership here because I wanted to see what they're like. I'm very curious. Like, I just think Fade and Allgaier is the play here. You know, go into the rear, hit the fucking wall. I think he'd. Just from a mechanics perspective, I I would have just gone to the backup car, and instead of trying to make this stupid thing make it through the race and stuff. Let's see what else. Yeah, I don't really have much. I think you're just focusing on these guys. Lastly, I will say I think this is a slate to where you probably want to enter as many lineups as possible. I think just having a ton of 2v2s and 1v1s is going to pay dividends in this in this race. Also, because of Dover and its volatility, I mean, we can look back really fast. Obviously, I indicated that I don't even know if this was on the screen when I was going through or when I was yapping about Carson Quaffle and stuff with the yellows last year. But we look at the races for Dover, and yet again, I mean, outside of my sheet that I have here just for the shows and stuff, everything you can have, you can look on your own with any of the subscriptions that we offer here. 5, 6, and 10 yellows. Last year, obviously, as I said, we got into World War III for really no reason in the last 50 laps, but there is quite a bit of potential for volatility in this race. Just how Dover is. That's why, although he probably looks good on paper, I would not probably want, as stated, I gave the example of probably not wanting 80% Eckes and like 70% Ryan Truex. I probably personally wouldn't want anybody in this race over probably 60 or 55% your exposure, just due to the fact that we can wreck a ton of cars here very quickly. And the people who are going to be viable today are going to be very close to one another. So there's a real chance that, like, if we get a wreck early, we could very easily take out 3 of the guys here. If there's a wreck from, these Neanderthals over here not knowing how to race, Eckes and Truex are probably the guys most likely to be taken out in a crash and stuff. Um, yeah, that's mainly it. Thoughts on Mayer? I mean, he's in. I'm pretty sure I have him highlighted here. Um, we look at where, Mike, if you or not Mike, Miami. We look at where Mayer is in terms of his average speed ranking at the intermediates this year and stuff, and I mean he's 4th. I mean that's pretty good, and $9,000. He needs 45 points to pay it off. He's starting 13th. I mean, we look at Jesse Love, Mayer, Carson Quaffle, Austin Hill, Sammy Smith. Ryan Sieg is in the same situation, but not in this conversation. So let me restart. Creed, Love, Mayer, Carson Quaffle, Austin Hill, and Sammy Smith all pretty much have a realistic projection for 7 place differential points. Okay, 5 to 7. As I said, all of these guys are going to compete for a top 10. We have Jeb Burton, Jeb Burton is not going to stay in the top 10 all day. I don't give a shit if he finishes 11th. That's not staying in the top 10. That's not making him viable for DFS. Okay, so Jeb is most likely going to fall out. Harrison Burton is most likely going to fall out. Williams to Wallace. I mean, Justin Allgaier doesn't even start there, so that's 5 right there. We then get to Jones and Sanchez. I mean, that's how many fingers is this, Brandon? That's 7 people who are probably going to lose positions in the top 10. Okay, those 7 positions pretty much default to these 5, 6 guys here. Okay, these are the people that I want to fit as many in my lineups as possible. How do I do that? I play Taylor Gray with Connor Zilich, 2 of these guys here, whatever gets my value, whatever the case may be. But that's how I want to approach this race here. The builds that I like, I like the idea of potentially trying to grab all potential lap leaders in here. I think that's fairly easy to do if it goes Taylor Gray, Connor Zilich, Eric Almirola, Tanner Gray, Connor Zilich, Ross Chastain. Because pricing isn't an issue with, if we're not playing Allgaier. You can play any combination of 3 guys, whoever you think could potentially get fast laps or laps led, you can very easily play them um, today in this race. Dean Thompson is showing up in my stuff. I don't have an opinion. Like, if he shows up my stuff, he shows up on my stuff. He's been showing up quite a lot today. Kind of hesitant on that. Him at 68 starting 20th. I'd actually rather play. I'd rather not play him, play a 5K guy, and then get. Let me change that. I'd rather whatever lineups have Dean Thompson in. I'm gonna end up playing some because it's in my stuff. But from a build perspective, I like builds that have a 5K value and an 8 to 9K driver versus the 2v2 of Dean Thompson and whatever other mid-range play those lineups are giving me. That's those are my opinions there. I know. Let's see what else. Yeah, I mean that's mainly it. I appreciate the 76 of you guys here. If you want my projections, if you want to use SaberSim, if you want to use any of the stuff you see on the screen, plus a ton of extra things, not just related to NASCAR, but also the partnership that we have with Pay Dirt. Obviously, our partnership with SaberSim and stuff like that. You can join us with any of these memberships that you see on your screen right here. The only difference in these 3 is the version of SaberSim that you have. This is the version that that I'm using to play penny slots against people. But I've had SaberSim Ultimate for like 2 years, 2.5 years now. There's no reason I would ever want to use any other product. Obviously, the NASCAR early package is $40 a month. That's to just say, hey, just spend the 50 extra and get the SaberSim stuff as well. And then also with all this stuff, you get all the pay dirt stuff as well. So all the pay dirt tools for MLB. I mean, we're gonna have preseason football like right around the corner. We're gonna have real football right around the corner. If you're looking to save money, realistically, I mean, these are some of the best annual pricings that you're gonna find in the industry. Really past that. Thank you guys for being here, and best of luck. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.